You know, this could be the beginning
When you roll over, then you're on my hair.
of something wonderful.
Tim.
Together is the latest body horror picture from one of our favorite studios making horror flicks right now, Neon. They have put out some of my favorite movies I have covered on this page, like Possessor, Infinity Pool, Crimes of the Future, Long Legs, The Monkey, so many more on top of that, and this might be another one to add to the list. Is Together another disgusting classic, or was this flesh fusion process an unsuccessful shunting? Well, let's get into it. Hey everybody, I'm Killjoy Jake, and instead of having friends, I have horror movies. Ah ha ha ha! Ah ha ha ha! Cool shirt, right? It would be cool if you guys could get one. Man, I guess there's a way to do that at the merch store? I don't know. Speaking of things I want to shamefully plug in today's video, please make sure to subscribe to this page for more goofy horror videos just like this one. Also, check out my horror gaming channel, GullGotha, for coverage on the latest horror video games. Thank you for your support. Now let's get into today's review. Together 2025 follows Tim and Millie, a fictional not married couple played by real-life married couple Dave Franco and Allison Brie, who find themselves at a crossroads when they move to the countryside, abandoning all that is familiar in their lives except each other. With tensions already flaring, a nightmarish encounter with a mysterious unnatural force threatens to corrupt their lives, their love, and their flesh. Long live the new flesh, baby, because Together is easily one of my favorite horror films of 2025 thus far. While the body horror is certainly the initial attraction, it's juxtaposed by a wholesome story of a young couple working out problems in their relationship. It may be one of the most unique films I've ever covered on this page. Even though it has an ingenious original concept at its core, the film still finds a way to tip its hat to the movies that clearly inspired it. The opening scene is a sick reference to John Carpenter's The Thing, the score and cinematography are so hereditary coded, and there's even hints of a Society influence that made my Sicko heart grow 3 sizes in the theater chair that day. There's a scene towards the end that is so reminiscent of The Shunting, but minus the class commentary. This ambitious swing definitely would not have worked if you didn't cast a real-life married couple at the center of this film. Dave Franco and Allison Brie's relationship is essentially on display here, and it adds little nuances that feel natural and human. It's a film that's engaging from start to finish too, because pretty much everything this movie does is effective. Everything from the emotional struggles, goopy effects, laugh-out-loud hilarious moments, and some thoughtful cinematography is done flawlessly. Like I said earlier, there's definitely homage to classics that came before this one, but oddly enough, the film that I had in my brain the entire time watching this new movie was 2021's Lamb. That's an obscure flick, and if you've never heard of it, I wouldn't blame ya. Lamb is an A24 film that follows a couple who take in a half-lamb, half-human hybrid and try to raise it as their own. They're judged by the people around them, and there's even forces at work that are trying to take little Ada away from them. When I saw this film, I thought it was so unique because it really tried to balance like this wholesome story with some pretty awful and horrifying visuals. Together reminded me a lot of my initial thoughts on that film, where I thought the concept was so interesting. I don't know if the execution of that movie was like 10 out of 10 as perfect as this though. In a way, I think you can argue that this film is trying to push 2 flavors together that don't usually go well together. Like, let's say orange juice and toothpaste. Wholesome romantic story and body horror are 2 things that sound like they would cancel each other out. After I saw Lamb, I had so much respect for it, but I don't know if I really loved the movie. I mean, I still went out and bought it, so maybe I did. I don't know. I appreciated the experiment that movie was, but I thought it couldn't be done successfully. Together proves that it can. Talking about some of my favorite movies of all time though, I feel like they all have one big thing in common. They're able to elicit many emotions from just one simple story. This is another big factor in Together's success. There's a joke revolving around Valium that brought down the house, some art house visuals that will make you reel back in your seat with fright, and an unpredictable ending that will have your jaw on the ground. That is, if you didn't get it spoiled in the lawsuit. We'll talk more about that in a sec. The dream sequences are probably the most terrifying thing about this entire movie. Like, Together never forgets to be a horror film, despite its very romantic and kind of goopy plotline. Tim's first big nightmare sequence shows him waking up in bed to see his mother and dead father in a connected, conjoined bed across from them. The parents start to grow closer to to him as the beds start to fuse together, and the way this scene wraps up makes my damn skin crawl. Usually when a film tries to do all these different things all at the same time, sometimes it just never works out, but again, Together finds a way to make it all happen. Not every concept, director, filmmaker, creative in general can do something like that. Michael Shanks, in his directorial debut, found a way to do that here. That tells me there is so much talent behind this first-time filmmaker. This little scare sequence too is also a great use of pushing a subplot that comes into the film later on, so it's also thoughtful as well as scary, again eliciting so many different things all with one scene. It's efficient, it's entertaining, it's everything you could want from a good horror movie as well as just a good story in general. One other minute detail that I really loved about this story too is that of course there's gonna be some body horror between Dave Franco and Alison Brie. I think anybody who has seen the trailer could tell you that. But honestly, one of the most unsettling moments in the entire flick is body horror that doesn't even involve those two characters. There's always the fear of when you see a trailer for a new movie that you have every big moment spoiled, and that's something I kind of felt with Together as more and more marketing slowly came out for this one, but trust me, there are still some surprises and hidden things up this one's sleeve. Damn, I'm impressed. Now, I don't think we can do a review for this movie without bringing up the lawsuit that this film is facing. Another party is claiming that writer-director Michael Shanks stole the idea for this movie from a film that came out in 2023 called Better Half. Dave Franco and Alison Brie were also pitched the idea for this movie back in 2020, but they turned it down because they couldn't take on producer roles. Michael Shanks put out a response. Let's talk a little bit about that. In a public statement released on Neon Socials by Shanks, he said, "To have this called into question is not only deeply unsettling, but entirely untrue. To now be accused of stealing this story, one so deeply based on my own lived experience, one I've developed over the course of several years, is devastating and has taken a heavy toll." Shanks clarifies that the initial draft for Together was completed before the Better Half pitch even happened with Brie and Franco, saying, "I wish I didn't have to clarify this, but I completed the first draft in 2019 and registered it with the Writers Guild of America that same year. In October of 2020, I received development funding from Screen Australia to further the project. In 2022, my agent of WME introduced me to Dave Franco. From our very first meeting, we bonded over our love of horror, and I pitched him Together, a script I had been trying to get into production for years with no luck. Soon after, he and Alison Brie came on board to act in and produce the film. I wasn't involved in the making of this picture, so I feel like it would be naive to speculate on if this idea was stolen or not, how much of it was actually taken from something else. I will say though, I think it would be incredibly disappointing to find out that was true, however, with how emotional, human, and just down to earth this story really does feel. I personally really enjoyed Together, and it may be cooler than this sick-ass raccoon. It's hard to be cooler than that. I mean, just look at this guy. Let me know if you guys are excited to see this one, or if you already have in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching. Please subscribe, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.